Peter Wood here from Greenwood Days, back in the garden and ready with another short film for you. Today we're actually going to be starting turning on the lathe. We've axed, draw knifed, we've centered up, we've looked at the chisels, now time to do some turning. But first, just a few tips to make your turning experience a bit easier. We've got the billet there, it's been oiled on either side, it's not too tight, so it's going to return. Stand a little bit away from the lathe so you've got enough room to move your chisels away. You don't want to be chopped right up there because then it makes it all a bit more difficult. Take it nice and gently and push all the way up and down. Got a reasonable amount of tension on there, it's not springing back too quickly. But notice what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get my treadle running all the way down, almost to the ground, and all the way back up again. We don't want to be bashing it into the ground, that's a waste of energy. That gets a bit too close as well. And you don't want to bring it so far up that it bashes and goes loose. If it's going loose each time, then every time you push back down, it sort of snatches and you don't get a nice smooth push. So nice and smooth, pushing all the way up and down without it going loose at the top and without bashing into the ground. Ideally, you don't need to put a lot of pressure, just enough to enable you to cut the wood. You'll find more pressure is on your back leg than your front leg, so if things start aching, it's going to be your back hip that starts aching. So do swap round, try and get into the habit of using both legs, swap around a little bit, make sure you move around so you're not just concentrating on one muscle and getting all the aches and pains in one place. So from the front, that's basically what I can show you. Push all the way up and down, nice and smooth and even. Don't rush it. It's not a tool to be rushing too much. Just take it nice and easy. So I'm going to do some close-ups around the back and show you how to hold the chisels and how to get the best cut when you initially start working, and then we'll go from there. Okay, bit more of a close-up, just showing you the stance again, and then we'll go on to using the chisel. One foot standing on the board, the other foot pushing up and down. Nice and consistent, nice and smooth push. Don't have your foot really low down because it's just quite hard to push up and down. But conversely, don't put your foot too high up because then you're stretching too far. Really, you want to be just pushing almost straight up and down. Try to get your body straight so you're not twisting all your joints. Straight up and down, and then nice and consistent. That's your pushing up and down. We've got the tool rest there, we've got the pegs. It's not hitting. If I push that there, it's going to start hitting. So put the peg back in for the moment. But you want your tool rest to be as close to the work as possible. And we're going to start with the big gouge. I'm going to show you right-handed. My right hand is going to hold the end of the tool handle. You don't want it up here, you want it right at the end, so we've got a nice bit of leverage, because it's at the moment it's going to bash into the flat edges, so it's going to start pulling up. So have it nice and far back so you've got a bit of leverage. And then with the bevel side, that's the bevel side, that's the flat side, the bevel side down, we're going to put the chisel and rest it onto the tool rest. Now this part of my hand, I don't know if you can see that, let's try that. That part of my hand is going to rest on the tool rest. That gives you a positive mating against the tool rest and stops things sliding around. If you hold it like this, then it's just going to slide around. You rest your hand on there and hold it, and it's nice and positive. Okay, that's really important, especially when we first start, because we're going to be hitting all the flat facets caused by the draw knife. So we're resting on there, we're holding. Again, no white knuckles. To start off with, you do want to hold it relatively tight, but not overly tight, because your hands are just going to get tired, and the more experience you get, the lighter you're going to hold the chisels, just because you want to feel what's happening through your hand rather than just battering it through. The next little bit, you want the back end to be as low an angle as possible, so that the front end, the sharp end, is just going to be slicing through. If you're perpendicular to the work, it might feel like it's doing something, but it's going to be scraping rather than cutting and sound awful. So bring your back of the chisel, or bring the back of the chisel down until you're just skimming over the top. So I'm going to rest there, hold that there, and now I'm going to be rubbing the back of the chisel on the wood. And then I'm going to slowly bring the chisel back until we just start cutting. I'll bring it back, and then you should just see, there we go, just going to start cutting. Now I'm trying my best not to push the chisel onto the work. I'm just resting it on there. If you push the chisel onto the work, then you will start bouncing and you'll get a really bad finish. It will all be not a good sound. Can you hear at the moment? We're getting an uneven sort of bouncing sound. That's me hitting the high spots, and that's what I want to do. I'm just trying to take the high spots off. I will say that's getting a bit close to the string. I don't know if you can see that. That's where someone caught the string. If you're lucky, that's what happens. If you're not lucky, it just cuts it in half and your lathe stops. Now can you hear? As my foot goes down, I put the chisel on, and as my foot comes up, I just take the chisel off just a little bit. 1/2 millimetre, 1/16 of an inch. Something that's just going to stop it rubbing as the foot comes back. If you listen, if I don't do that, we get that sound. And we don't want that. And you'll get to a certain point where suddenly you'll hear a nice consistent sound, and you'll get long shavings coming off. That will tell me without looking that I've got down to a cylinder at that point. Now I've just been showing you that little bit. In an ideal world, you would just take a little bit all the way along, because your billet is bouncing up and down. So you want to go along and take all the high spots off in one go, and then go back again, so evenly you're bringing it down to a cylinder. So rather than just doing a little bit there and then working your way back, come across, taking a little bit off, a little bit off, a little bit off. Watch out for the string. Take a little bit off, a little bit off, a little bit off, and keep on going along. That means the whole thing comes down evenly, and it's worse if you've got a nice smooth bit here, then this bit's bouncing up and down, because by the time you get to here and you smooth that bit off, this bit will be just a little bit uneven, because that counterweight of it bouncing up and down really doesn't get you a true register at this end. So take it down one at a time, but I'm trying to show you this a little bit. So we just concentrated on that little bit to start off with. Now I'm going to swap round, and I'm going to show you in close-up why you shouldn't try and push hard initially with the chisel. It's a funny thing, but less is more. You'll go much quicker if you take less off. You'll get a better finish, and everything goes smoothly if when you first start roughing out your wood, you're taking small amounts off. I see so many people trying to bash large amounts away, and all it does is knock the billet off the lathe. It bashes in and your chisel bounces. So I'm going to show you that now, but I'll change the camera angle so you can see what I'm doing a little bit better. Okay, back again. I'm now turning left-handed, so I've got my right hand holding on to the chisel and my left hand is controlling the cut. And you can see this end tapers down quite a lot, so it's a little bit more off center, which is a good opportunity to show you why you shouldn't push too hard with your chisel when you're taking the marks off made with the draw knife. So we're going to push up and down, and I'm going to start putting the chisel on. Now if I can get it closer, that's better. Then I've got more support between the tool rest and the work. Get a nice low angle, starting, not cutting, bring it up until I'm just cutting. Now at the moment I'm barely putting it on, and I'll show you nice and slowly. The reason being, if I push and I'm taking that high spot off, and if I push hard, then immediately my chisel's going to cut forward, and then I'm going to try and hit that high spot. It's going to go round, and then it's going to try and hit that high spot and try and take too much off, and so it's going to bounce up. So if I try and push hard, you can see it's bashing in and it's bouncing, so you get these dig-ins, chatter I'll call it, and so you're really trying to bring that chisel back rather than push it forward until you get it down to a cylinder. You can see it moving a bit, so I've got to hold it a little bit stronger, more firmly with my left hand to stop it bashing, but I'm trying to take a light little cut off. You'll notice it's tapering down a little bit, so I'm angling my chisel just a little bit, so it's pointing from the large diameter down to the small diameter. Let's take a few more of those high spots off. If I start going that way, then it's going to start digging in up the grain. So we've got to keep on coming down from large diameter down to small diameter. So I'm just getting the chisel rubbing on the cut, but I'm not pushing any further in. But you can hear it's getting a bit smoother already. The shaders are getting longer until we get down to here. It's almost cylinder. One more passes, and that should probably do it. You see I'm going from large down to small there, and then we're going to swap over and come from large down to small that way. You don't need to start from the top and come down, you can come back on yourself. So mix and match, change the way you hold the chisel on. There we go. Nice consistent cut, long shavings coming off. Lovely. Let's move that string out of the way, and I can just do this a little bit. And that is the billet roughed out and running nice and smoothly. Now I will say, don't get disheartened in turning the initial billet. I always think getting from the draw knife stage to this smooth roughed out with a gouge stage is the hardest part, especially when you're starting to learn. Your chisel's going to be bouncing, it's going to be shaking up and down, it'll feel like you're never going to get it down to a cylinder, but suddenly you're going to get to that point where you're getting a nice consistent cut, and then everything becomes so much easier. So that's using the big gouge. We've done a little bit of holding it, we've moved it one way, we've moved it the other way, we've taken all the high spots off, and maybe in the next film I'll show you how to smooth this off with the wide flat chisel. Hope you enjoyed that, and see you next time.